Hello. Can you hear me this time, guys? Let me know. Hello everyone again. Hopefully my sound is working now. That would be ideal. Because I don't fancy restarting again. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me and it's all good. Loud and clear? Yes. I've got to stay on brand, guys. Okay. To be fair, I've done alright with the start of the streams, yeah. We don't have the Hall of Mirrors. So I'm just filling in for Dave and Andy. I see Andy's in the chat. He won't mind me taking the mic. Just getting too excited. Yeah, that's it. I've got too many pictures of Dwight York on my computer. It's blown it up. I was actually late starting the stream as I spent 5 minutes looking through my daughter's fancy dress to try and find a tiara, as I was also manager of the week. Couldn't find it though, so I let you all down. At least I threw in that I was manager of the week. I had to get that in there. We are ready for the injury scares, says Jay. Let's go, says Adam Sands. You look tired, mate. Too much celebrating. Inspiration. I worked last night until midnight. The games were very, very late, so obviously the stream wouldn't have been that night because no one would have tuned in. And I set my alarm this morning to get up and stream for you guys, despite having absolutely no sleep. Part in the interest of getting all the news out as early as we possibly could. Some people don't watch the stream, obviously, so they don't want to put all the tweets out and stuff before doing the stream. So that's why we're doing the early one. We're getting it done in the morning so you guys can get this done. We can get all the tweets out, and then obviously we've got the information as early as possible, and we need it for the triple game week. Oh, I'm not a hero. I set my alarm a little bit early. I should have gone to bed earlier. It's all good. There's nurses out there. Derby injuries on the way, Ryan. Ooh, we shall see. Right, let's get into the review. There was a couple of FA Cup matches as well, so remind me once I've gone through these teams to show you guys those. Aston Villa home to Liverpool, 1-0. This game was largely dreadful. I think it'd be interesting to know, as obviously I don't know, because we wouldn't play the game live, as to how many of these shots actually came after the red card in the 60th minute. Without that, it might have been even less. Aston Villa slightly more of the play. You'd expect that with the red card. Liverpool were basically dreadful. I mean, Owen didn't win a single header. Not really his game to win any headers. Melberg and Alpay dominated there. And I'm going to show you this because Rob Pick was not lying on the Bosco Balaban goal. It's possibly the best bit of commentary all season we've had here. Bearing in mind that they use these match reports to create the tweets. Look what he had to work with this week. It's actually hilarious. So, 73rd minute. Aston Villa made a substitution. Delaney came on for Alan Wright. Balaban scored! Indirect free kick was given. Littman lined up the free kick. So it doesn't even go into detail in retrospect. It doesn't tell you how the goal was scored. It doesn't tell you any of the build-up. And there was an assist for the goal somehow. So it doesn't even tell us. It completely writes that part off. Balaban scored. That's all you need to know, guys. Yeah. He scored. That was it. Well done, Balaban. We'll never know how that goal came, but I can only assume as he got man of the match, it was an absolute worldie. And the computer ran out of words to describe just how good it was. Let's move on from Villa Liverpool. Fairly boring match, that one. Bolton Fulham. Many of us had this game down for goals. It didn't really disappoint. Fulham probably did disappoint a little bit. I thought it might be a 3-2, a 3-3, something like that. If you look on the match stats, they both had the exact amount of shots and goals, 9-6. The game was pretty even overall, so Fulham probably can count themselves a little bit unlucky. But obviously out of the two, Jaskalainen's a bit of a better keeper than Crowdson, who got a 5. So probably the story of the keepers more than anything this week. Robert Lee, I think he's 5 million, isn't he? Goal and assist. Can't argue with that. It's actually one of the better 5 million picks. He does seem to play most of the games, to be fair. And this was the game week where Pedersen decided to have the day off. Went round that chocolate factory, picked up a few dairy milks. Total shocker, to be honest. One of the more nailed players in the game. We know nailed in this game doesn't mean place 38, but he's not far off of it. So whoever went from him in this plum fixture just picked one of probably the 3 games the entire season, sorry, that he won't play. Yeah, Ronald, I don't usually see the game results until just before the game week to save the enjoyment of the game. I'm just reading a tweet. I try not to do that so I can engage, do all this sort of stuff. But this week it was a bit different. Me and Andy simmed the game together. It was kind of like a one-off. Well, perhaps not a one-off, but I really didn't enjoy this week not being able to interact at all. So I'm going to try and avoid that in future if I can. Because, yeah, especially this week, I've got things to think about. Yes, the no-show really did suck. It was a good pick. Obviously, 3 goals here. Hansen, who got the goal, obviously, in his position. So you would have thought that Pedersen might have done pretty well if he played. They decided to play this guy, Stephen Young, who's got to be up there for worst player in the game as well. We've had a few of them feature this season. Stephen Young's throwing his name in the hat there. He's very quick and he can dribble. He's quite determined, but apart from that, he's utterly useless. And he's playing in centre midfield. Not really where you need those kind of skills, I would suggest. But he still managed a 9, so I can't slag him off too much, and he got an assist. So fair play. That's the guy that probably replaced Pedersen over all of it. I guess because Hansen might have played here and Pedersen might have gone here. So game knows what it's doing. 9 and an assist. Screw your fantasy team. A la Pep. Fulham, there isn't really anything to speak of here. The stats, nothing particularly stands out. Steve Finnan got 4 key passes. I think he's actually played pretty well whenever he's played. His average rating's okay. And he's done alright for points as well, as you can see. He just never gets the game time. Collins finally gets a goal and starts kicking back in. He's still a decent option at 5.5. Obviously doesn't play every single game, but especially whilst Stolzes is out, he's probably a little bit more nailed. But we're not really looking at Fulham players, are we now, as it's the triple. Crowdson finally gets his 5 when, well, no one actually wanted him to. Chelsea-Leicester, 4-1. Obviously big scores. These are pretty hilarious, to be fair. Chelsea only managed 3 shots on target in the whole game, but they managed 4 goals, courtesy of their own goal. Leicester, 9 and 7, but only managed 1. So can count themselves very unlucky, I would suggest. Play was fairly equal. Ian Walker, though, with the 5. And Leicester do rotate their keepers quite a lot throughout the season, Flowers and Walker, and it doesn't seem to work for them because quite a few 5s are thrown in there. Forsell obviously got the brace. He's actually a handy striker in this game, as you can see from his stats. They're pretty good, but you just never know who's going to play, so it's not really an option. Carboni coming off on the 56th minute. That's a bit of a kick in the teeth. It does happen quite a lot with him, actually, that he gets subbed. I think most of the time it's because Chelsea have got a whole host of players that can play on the right wing. Obviously on the bench here alone you've got Stanic. Zola can actually play there as well, that they can put there. Gronkiar can move over to the right wing. And they've got other players that they didn't even put on the bench this time. So nearly always they will have a right winger on the bench, and Carboni will suffer as a result quite often to that. Yeah, Near's pointed out the new manager attacking have an effect. I mean, they did pretty well here. I think they just got unlucky. So yeah, I still think Leicester's attacking assets outside of this triple game week are going to be interesting. Skokov's still got an 8. Did this whole thing where he's often the target for headers still. I still think he's a good option after this. I really do. Even without the games, because it's just a midfielder up front who can get goals on direct style. So it's similar to Fulham, where any game they could just go off and get a whole bunch of them. So one to keep an eye on for sure. Ipswich and Leeds. Haridason sent off. Yes! It's part of the reason why I had a good game week, I think. It's the first time in forever that Haridason has not got a load of points. He still managed a bonus point, though. He is cheat code. 100%. red card, and he's still churning out these kind of performances. But I'll take it. I'll take it all day. In terms of the match stats, Leeds absolutely battered Ipswich here. 12 shots on target, 16 shots in total. The play was fairly equal, but arguably could have had more. How many of those shots came after the red card, I don't know, but suggests that it could have been more, right? If you look at the ratio for many of the other teams for shots on target to goals. What was I going to say? What did I notice? The stats weren't particularly good for anyone here apart from Hreiderson, as usual, with his 13 headers, 9-1-4 key. Wins most of his tackles as well. Obviously, he's a standout. When we go to Leeds, I noticed that the key passes, you can see Gary Kelly got 4 here. Alan Mabry got 3. So they had all their key passes coming down from the right-hand side of their tactic. And Mabry's just been excellent, to be honest. So they were up against Croft. So I think Torrico was a big miss here for them. Maybe if they had him, it might have been different. He's actually quite good for marking, but he's got low aggression. He's got low bravery. He's got low anticipation. His positioning's not great either. So I think they just caught him out on that side quite often. And yeah, maybe it seems like I looked at his stats earlier. They're not particularly great, but he seems to haul massive when he does score points. So as a 4.5 defender, he's just... I don't know what he got this week. Was it 11 points or something? Still maintain. I mean, Dave called him out a long time ago, actually, saying that he really liked Mabry and he was a good pick. I wasn't so sure, but to be honest, he's been bang on. I think he has been a very good pick. And Radaby and Woodgate largely dominated. Viduka, you see this thing with the 16 headers, only 6-1. This is like, he's basically Van Nistelrooy light at the moment. This is what you see from Van Nistelrooy away from home, right? Where they just, the fact that he has so many headed attempts just shows you that how many chances Leeds are creating consistently for him. They don't often win them away from home, similar to Van Nistelrooy, but at home they usually do. So it's like, yeah, Leeds, if anything, that is a sign of how many chances Leeds are creating. Let's go on to Man United and Sunderland, where Giggs is quietly, I think, turning into a very decent pick. Started the season extremely slowly. Look at those stats, guys. They're absolutely unbelievable. Giggs is like an assist machine usually in the game. He is ridiculously good at getting assists from open play. He's basically Arca on steroids in terms of his flair and agility, with 20 for both of them. He's got the dribbling, acceleration, he's got everything. He's basically what Arca dreams of being one day. And when you look at his returns, he's got an attacking return every other game. It's not great for 11, but when you compare to most of the other midfielders, it's not that bad either. And then you obviously throw in this average rating, which means he's getting bonus nearly every time he takes to the pitch. So I think Giggs is slowly becoming the standout pick for their midfield, especially when Beckham and Varane are getting injured every other week. So yeah, an interesting one to keep an eye on, I think. Do really, really like him. And yeah, I say if you discount, say I think the first 10 weeks of the season, he basically got nothing. So you could argue all this has come in like the last 10 weeks or so. And it's the bonus. Anyway, I'll stop banging on about Giggs. And of course, the game week relies to this man, my hero. I bought him in this week. Tipped him last week, he let me down, but I still went back there. 1 goal. Bang on form. Gotta get him in now. Forget your triple game week targets. The thing is, obviously I'm half joking here, but at the same time I'm not. They play Fulham next week. I would not be surprised if Dwight York bangs 2-3 goals in that game because it's Fulham. And the law of averages states, right, that he should score now, a brace every week till the end of the season to just come out level on what we predicted his points would be. So you never know. He's still doing alright, is York. His morale and form's not bad up there. I'm going to be probably taking York out, like anyone who has York probably will be this week, for just all the doubles. You know, you got Viduka, Shearer, you got a Derby forward. And I can already see it now that York is getting 2 goals, and whoever I bring in for Derby gets like 3 points. I wouldn't even mind. I wouldn't even care. Scholes played up front, so whoever went for him for that, I think it was like a 2-game punt or whatever, he missed out in the first game, but then he played up front in the second one, so you kind of got your reward here. Could have been even better. Eventually he obviously went into midfield when Veron got injured. Unfortunately, Solskjaer would have gone up front and scored straight away. But yeah, Man United conceding 2 goals was probably the biggest shock of this game. Sunderland actually did pretty good. I mean, Man United had all the ball, as you'd expect. They had Ratchabuka in goal, so always liable to concede if they get any shots. But they did manage 4, which isn't bad. And as you see here, Kevin Phillips again, his off the ball stat, he's just getting these shots away quite often. It's very rare for teams to get this many shots away at Old Trafford. So they did really, really well, to be honest, and it was a bit of a surprise. Johnson and Blanc have got really good positioning at 17 each, I think it is. Yeah, 17 each. So you wouldn't have expected Phillips to find the space, but he still managed to do it. Let's go to Middlesbrough and Blackburn. This was obviously good for us Festa owners, even though they conceded 2. It wasn't even a penalty this time. He manages to get a goal. Festa, even without the goal, would have been on for man of the match, though, I think here. 9 headers, 8-1, 4 key. He got 2 key tackles as well. Really filled in for Ekiog this week. And Southgate, you could say, because he wasn't there either. So, yeah, without Festa, I think they would have struggled even more so in this game. The rest of the team was not particularly good. Rickard did okay, as you can see here in the key stats. And Alan Johnston was pretty much a non-event. 18 passes and he got 1 key. That was pretty much his contribution. Didn't win any headers, no shots on goal, no tackles. Had 2 runs, but didn't really do much. Not the best. I see Dave saying lol Alan won. I don't know what that means, Dave. Please enlighten me. Oh, 1 header. Is that what you mean? Maybe not. So yeah, Middlesbrough were pretty bad. I mean, the stats they were okay, fairly level. But Blackburn threw out this surprise 4-2-4. Ronald de Boer probably forcing the change of formation here. Blackburn have got a number of formations that they haven't really used in our sim. They're the team, I mean, Souness probably has about 7 or 8 in his locker. And yeah, they haven't used this one all season to my knowledge, but it is fairly common, especially if they sign someone like De Boer. I think now there's a chance that these guys move to their flat 3-5-2. Dave's saying, how many sims did we do for Ron to get injured? Just 1, I'm afraid. I can vouch for it this week because I was involved. Me and Andy sat down and did it together. So I can't speak for the rest of them. Nah, the guys always do 1. There'll be no point doing it over and over and over again. I mean, the half of them they've just got zombie teams. They ain't expecting to do anything. Cheers for delaying the stream, says Irons. Yeah, it wasn't intentional. What was I saying? So I think Blackburn now at home may change their setup. They will still use the one they used before, but I think on occasion they may go to the... in fact, I set up Dave's Brighton team. I hope you don't mind, Dave. Just so I could show. This formation with the flat 3-5-2 is something I see a lot since I've put De Boer into my team, into my sims. And De Boer often plays somewhere in midfield, not up front. So look out for this. This could start happening for Blackburn now. And obviously that means there's only 2 forwards rather than the 3. So a little bit more rotation up front, because De Boer usually ends up playing in midfield. So let's see if that happens. I'll be interested to see. It may not, of course, because Blackburn have been doing some strange things this sim. I would say, oh yeah, the reason Festa dominated aerially, by the way, is that he was up against Marcus Bent, who's got 9 for jumping. I'm sure he was. Ian says, you sim 50 times until I won Manager of the Week. Yeah, I'm just going to admit it now. It didn't take 50, it took more like 5,000 to get that perfect combination. But we got there in the end. It was well worth it. Yeah, Hernan red card took ages, sanity. Hey, I might have some skills with the editor and stuff, but editing an actual game whilst it's going on, or then, yeah, I think I need to be creating Champ Manager games myself if I can do that sort of stuff. Southampton and Spurs, my captain Selakovic, what a guy. However, it looks like we were a little bit lucky. So it's just irony, in fact, that I do a lot of prep in terms of the teams and how they set up, and try to replicate it with sim data, all the while not knowing that Southampton had hired a new manager. Had I known that, I might not have gone for Selakovic captain, and of course it turns out to be the week where it was the good idea and that it didn't matter. So it was more luck than judgment. I was just targeting Southampton. And yeah, Southampton probably could have done a little bit better here, as you can see. With their direct style that they now play, James Beattie, when he plays, can be very, very good with his 20 jumping. And obviously here he did pretty good as well. So look out for this. Headers one key. It's kind of like the Dion Dublin thing. I would expect Beattie will start to score a few goals. I know no one's going to go there, but it's just something to note. And Spurs, Selakovic obviously needs those goals to get the average rating. He had 3 shots, 2 on target, 2 went in. Had he not got that, he probably would have still been on a 7, as you can see here, 6 or 7. Chris saying, this is the happiest I've seen Luke. Of course, Chris. It's a shit show every week for me, usually. Got to enjoy it, haven't I? It's not usually a shit show. I'm doing alright. I like to dramatise it, though. Play the victim. Not as much as Rory, though, if he's in the chat. He's the real victim out there. Yeah, no one else really worth talking about, is there? Spurs did okay. Can't keep a clean sheet for love nor money. I think Keller got a ridiculous amount of points. And that's that. Let's move on. By the way, guys, I'm just going to throw this out here now, because I think FPL mode, and I don't wish to take the piss, he had captain Pedersen and vice captain Silvestre. Now, that's incredibly unlucky for the Pedersen thing. He plays like 35 a season, as I've already said, and yeah, there's no reason to think that he wouldn't play. But I should tell you now that putting your vice captain, forget ceiling for your vice captain, forget looking who is the best, just stick it on Selakovic every single week, because at least you know he's got a very, very strong chance of playing. And I think the 2 times now where I think quite a lot of people got lucky with their vice captain this week, with Selakovic coming in for Pedersen and then becoming their captain. And this happened again, I can't remember who it was, but there was a few weeks back where another popular captain didn't play, and people had vice captain on Selakovic and he did well. Oh, Mode doesn't even own Selakovic. Okay, well, it still applies to people like Johnston, you know, someone who's just definitely going to play. Because to put your vice captain on Silvestre, you know, for a home game against Sunderland, which could easily be a Rep 12 game, is a bit brave, I would suggest. But yeah, just a tip for the future, guys. Vice captain, put it on someone nailed. That's what I'm going to do anyway, just in case. Vice on Kylie, Andy says. Yeah, exactly. Double game week, isn't it? And treble game week now. Stick the Vice on Kylie. Right, there was also FA Cup, guys, so I'm going to show you this quickly. So, FA Cup results that were played on the same day. Derby, the team everyone's looking at, got battered 4-0. Thierry Henry did not play for Arsenal, so he took the day off. Derby did pretty much nothing. It was a comfortable 4-0 routine win. Lots of 5s for Derby. They played basically their full team. They played in this formation, which I think you should take note of, because Derby play this away from home quite a lot. And obviously they play at least one away game during our triple game week. So I would suggest you do not want the midfielder who plays here. Now, it doesn't mean Powell will play there, because they actually rotate who they play in various positions quite a lot. But my tip would be to make sure that you go through Derby's away games in our sim, so we've got all the data on Whitebeard's site, and look who has played in these positions when they've played these formations. It doesn't guarantee they will, because the computer could just switch them around for a laugh, but I would suggest you either want the guy who plays here or even the guy who plays here, because the back arrow is only when they haven't got the ball, so he fills in when they haven't got the ball, but he's actually AMC when they do have the ball, so that's not that bad. And likewise, so you end up with 2 AMCs when they got the ball here, and this guy will be sat at centre back. So that's my tip if you are going for a derby week to look through. I haven't done it myself yet, so I don't know who it could be, but there should be a one of the midfielders that is more likely to play in the advanced positions, which doesn't guarantee you anything, does it? But surely gives you a better chance. Charlton, Rotherham. Now, somehow Charlton managed to lose this game. Not quite sure how, but more importantly, they went to extra time. And as you can see here, they didn't really rest any of their decent players. McAllister usually gets down to about 60 condition anyway. He went to 62. Wilcox went to 70. Jensen 69. So we might have some tired people now. On this note as well, before we get to the fixtures, because people have been asking about the double for Arsenal, which comes in 28. It all comes down to, as far as I'm aware, this game here against Chelsea. So Arsenal are at home to Chelsea on the 16th of February. If that game is a draw, the double for Arsenal and West Ham will be off. So that's all we need to avoid. I think if either team wins, then it should be on. We're not going to know that until obviously after this week though, but it's just something to bear in mind that there's a chance it could end up being moved to another game week. I'm not sure which one that'll be, but there's a chance. Also, I'm going to say it now before we get to the end of the stream where I'm going to reiterate it. There is an early deadline this week, guys, on Saturday because of the way these guys are playing the games. And I'm just going to bring up the text that Dave sent me to make sure I'm telling you the correct times. So the deadline on Saturday is actually at 11 AM and the games will kick off at 12:30. They're obviously trying to avoid real football in FPL as much, so it clashes with Norwich and Brighton. So they've tried to pick the game that's least enjoyable to watch, I would suggest there. Sorry Dave, I know he's a Brighton fan. So just make sure you've got your team sorted because the deadline is 11. They will tweet all this, but it's an earlier deadline for Saturday. They're then going to play the double game week games at 10 PM on Saturday, so you're going to get that later on as well. And then the final game, the triple, so Derby Everton I think it is, will be on Sunday in the morning around 10 AM. So it's a big game week, as we know. Right, let's get to the teams. What am I doing? There we go. Right, so we're on the morning, Saturday the 9th. I'm just going to remind everyone of the fixtures actually. Don't know why I did that. So these are all the teams that play today. These guys, so Charlton, Chelsea, Liverpool, Ipswich have got one extra day of recovery. So 7 to 8% you could probably add for most players here on top of whatever we're about to see. And Blackburn and Everton have got 2 days extra. So yeah, around 16% you could probably add for their players before they play Monday. The doubles happen on the Wednesday in game. And I think all those teams play on the Saturday, do they? Oh no, Charlton play on the Sunday. So they play on the Sunday and then the Wednesday. But still enough time to recover there, you would suggest. And then there's a week before these games. In between this, I think there's a chance that Derby might play in some sort of cup or something. I'm not an expert when it comes to this sort of thing, but it seems like there's enough days for them to recover there. But anyway, in terms of the condition and stuff we're going to see now, these are the most important things to note that these teams play on these days. Right, let's go back. Let's get it done, guys. Yeah, I've got a Charlton triple up as well, Alan. Oh, Derby just got knocked out, Andy says. Of course they did. I just looked at it 4-0, so they won't be playing in that week off. So, Arsenal. Luzhny still suspended, 1 match. Tony Adams is still 10 days. Indeed, Lee Dixon is 87%. Everyone else is fine. These guys, we already knew this. I'm not going to click on these guys from the African nations. Lauren Kanu and Itonga. who no one's going to own, are off on international duty. Aston Villa, Hendry's 90% a few days away. Alright, Andy's asking me to get the FA Cup games. Let's do that then. So here's the FA Cup games. Arsenal versus Chelsea. Middlesbrough at home to Sheffield United. Newcastle are playing Ipswich. Everton are away to Rotherham. Sunderland are at home to Hull. So after this week, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 4 is the most Premier League teams we can have left in the Cup because they're playing each other. So assuming all the Prem teams win, that would be Sunderland, Everton. You would suggest Newcastle probably. Sunderland, Everton, Newcastle, Middlesbrough, and then Arsenal or Chelsea. So Arsenal probably. So just about those 4 or 5 teams left. That would be it. Andy's saying they do have Everton do have a cup game in between their double. Okay, so this is Everton's. This is all very confusing, isn't it? But they still play Blackburn on the 11th. They've then got 5 days, and then they've got 4 days until Derby, and they're playing Rotherham. So you'd hope they wouldn't have to use too much energy there, but in any case, that's more than enough days to recover in most cases. Let's go back to Villa. Hadji still 2 weeks with a torn groin, and you can see these guys here that are on slightly low percentage. Yeah, Ronnerid's making the point that there's chances of Everton players picking up an injury in that game in between and then missing the next one. It's a good point. It could happen. We all know that injuries can happen in games, but they can happen just as likely in training. So I think when you've got these, I think Derby, for example, spread their games over, what is it, like nearly 14 days or something? That's a lot of training. That's a lot of gash legs, guys. Alright, everyone else is pretty good for Villa. Barry is still 1 yellow away from a ban. No one's going there. Blackburn, Lasso, pretty sure this is a new one. Picked up in the 2-1 win. He's out for 2 weeks with a twisted knee. So he will not be playing. Donnelly doesn't play anyway. And all these guys are pretty good in terms of condition. No issues for Blackburn. You would expect Bjornaby just comes in at left back. Bolton. A little bit low on condition for some of these guys. So Gardner is at 83%. That's not ideal. Wonder Kid, Stephen Young, 82%. And that's really all. But Barnes is at 89, doesn't often play though. And Wallace is 94. Cooper's 1 yellow away from a ban. Pedersen's at 100% ready to go. Back from his Cadbury's visit. He's loving life. So Gardner's probably the only concern there. That, I mean, they can still play. He's over 70. But possibly an early sub if he does start. Now Charlton, guys. Not injuries, but for someone who's got triple Charlton is not what I wanted to see. Luckily I haven't got McAllister, who is 71%, and given how nailed he is, he's literally 1% over the threshold of where they'll start him. So I would suggest he probably will start and then just have to come off almost instantly. Wilcox, I've got him, he's at 87%. Again, he's been pretty much nailed for Charlton, so if I was to throw some opinion in there, I think he probably will play, but early sub looks very likely for all of these guys, depending on who's on the bench. Yeah, Martin, they do play on the Sunday, so we get an extra day. So with Wilcox, you could be looking at sort of 90, 94, 93. It's not the worst for him. McAllister's going to struggle though. He'd be sort of 80, 79, 77. And Jensen I've also got who was going to play as well. So it's not all bad, you know, it's low 90s. But I think that was their better game, right? So yeah, I mean, you would argue home to Chelsea's probably their better game just because Charlton are so bad away from home as usual. So I would prefer they were lower condition for the other game. But what can you do? Should be okay. Kinsella, someone's asking. Where is Kinsella? Kinsella's fine. Generally, you just want to put 7% onto Wilcox. I don't know what his natural fitness is, but 7% is a safe bet. 8% can happen and does happen fairly often, but sometimes it's 7. So you want to put him as 95 really, which is fine, isn't it? So I was being a little bit dramatic. Fish is still away, Bartlett's still away, Shitu's still away. Let's move on. Chelsea. Ida Johnson continues his recovery, 3 weeks. Who's saying that? Almanda. It's not Johan Almanda. He's godly. It's a young kid they've signed. 16 though, so I think the game would be very brave to throw him in, but you never know, do you? Petit is a week away, 90%. It was only a chest injury, so could come in, I guess. Di Matteo is now just 10 days away before we see him, and adds a little bit of rotation in the mix because usually he's quite often picked. And Dalabon is 1 day. You can see these guys on slightly low condition here. Hasselbank, 95%. He's still annoyed. He's suddenly on very good morale. So I say about the morale hardly matters. He was on, I think he was on poor morale. Plays one game, does very well, regardless of his low morale, and then instantly is high. Ferrer's 82, so probably unlikely to see him play, which is probably a good thing, because Desai also went to Cadbury's, didn't he? Strangely. Right, on to Derby, the big one, and we've been robbed of one asset, not one that probably a lot of people would go for, but it's quite disappointing. Tonton Zola Mokoku out for a week with a bruised thigh, injured during training. He was superb morale, superb form, and obviously godly whenever he took to the pitch. So if you had a 4.5 on your bench and you thought he might get 1, he could have been worth it, just because his performances when he has played. But unfortunately he's obviously out. I don't know if that means he'll be back in time for the third game. Potentially he could be, right, because it's only a week. So if we go here, where are we? 9th. So he could play against Everton actually, but it's an away game. They don't often rotate in away games, and he's not first choice. So I'll be surprised if he plays that one. I guess it depends if they pick up any other injuries and other things during the other games. But looks like he probably won't play. Also, you guys may have noticed that Christie is on 88%. So a player I've been eyeing up very much so, and they obviously play today. What's this? Johan Almelda's big brother. Nice to see that Peter gets his chance in England. I don't know if that's a joke or not. He's 16, that guy. Johan Almelda's older, so he would be the older one. So yeah, Christie at 88%, playing today. If he starts, obviously. Perhaps a concern, I don't know. Ravanelli's 95. I think that might sway some people to go for Ravanelli if they're eyeing up Christie instead. it's hard to know. He's well above the threshold where he could play. The rest of the midfielders are pretty good. Valkyrie's 100, for example. Powell's 98. And Burley is 96. Just on that note, in terms of penalties, which, as we all know, you can't rely on in CM. Anything seems to go when it comes to these, but usually it's one of Ravanelli or Burley in my experience, and Burley's usually ahead of Ravanelli, but not always. I think they might be quite level. Scala's in the chat, perhaps he can say, but I've often seen Burley get the penalties or Ravanelli, so it will be one of these two if you're looking for those kind of ceiling players. You know, if it's 3 games, could get 5 penalties or something stupid. Someone's saying Elliot is 86. Yes, Elliot is 86. Slight concern. Lescott's 96. Sort by appearances. Yep. Not stats. Selection. That's across all games. We just do league. Why have I not? Am I being stupid, guys? How do you sort by apps just in league? Here we go. Got it. So Burley with 22, along with Elliot, Powell, and Valakari. I've got the most. Poom, Carbonari, Christie. How many games have Derby played in the league? They've played 24. So even the most nailed of players have missed 2. Alright, Scala's saying that Burley has been taking them so far, so he's probably ahead of Ravanelli. But yeah, that's a good point. That Burley's a player that can often be early subbed and stuff, so Ravanelli could get them in that case. Aranio is still 2 weeks away, so I guess there's a chance that he could go orange and then play the last game. Is there anything anybody else wants to see from Derby? Because obviously they're highly topical before I move on to the next team. Anything I've missed here, guys? You want me to look at Derby's fixtures? We've obviously got these 3 games in our triple, and then it's away to Chelsea. So for people like me who don't have any chips, that's my biggest concern, is -4ing or even -8ing or whatnot these players in to play 3 if they play all 3, and then they've got Chelsea away where I probably won't want them. So it's like I need to work out whether I can bench them for this game, and you've also got to factor in that across, that's a lot of games and a lot of training. We could then get a load of other injuries to other players and things, and suddenly I won't be in a position where I can bench him in this one. So I might need to then take a hit to take him out. So for me, it's almost a -8 for every player that I want to bring in, because I probably will have to hit them out. I can't rely on having my free transfer available for this game. And I think as well, to add to that, Van Nistelrooy might be back for this week, home to Spurs. As long as he avoids injury in the Champions League, I think he's back for home to Spurs this week. Same as Henry could be for a double home to Charlton and West Ham. So you're going to want your transfers. Those of us without chips are really struggling, I would suggest. Let's go to Everton. So Everton, Duncan Ferguson is still 2 months away. Osman is a few days, but David Weir is 10 days away with a groin strain. I don't know if that was from before or not. I can't remember. Did he play their last game? No, he didn't. So it probably was an older injury. Everyone else is 100%. It's time for Wayne Rooney. Forward left. It's probably the safest pick from Everton, I would suggest. Watson can be very good as well, but not quite as nailed. Yeah, if I was going Everton, it'd probably be Stubbs. I also have been eyeing up Gaza, just as like someone to bring in for Stolzers. Potentially gets 2 games. The thing is, his stamina's 9, and I just wonder that if he plays 90 minutes in a game, will he be fit enough for the second one? He's hardly done anything either, so it would be a massive punt. But potentially a cheap option. I think he's 5 million. Yeah, Andy's saying Everton player. It's going to be Stubbs, or I just maybe consider Gaza as a bench option. Rosiński's a decent player. He can be okay, but you don't know for sure he starts. Kevin Campbell can be good. I don't like it. I mean, you're not going to use a forward slot with the other forwards available. So for me, it's basically Stubbs and at a push Gaza. I don't really like anyone else, to be honest. I know Graverson's probably one of their better players, but not for me. Fulham. Stolzer's still injured, 10 days, thigh strain. Coleman is 10 days away. Cornwall's 3 weeks. And Sean Davis is a few days with a stub toe. McAnaspey is 88%. Collins is 93%. Everyone else is looking good condition wise, and Wadado's still out international duty. Corrigan's 1 yellow away from a ban. It's not too bad so far, is it, guys? Ipswich. So they've had a few injuries. They picked up 2 in the game they just played, I believe. So Armstrong is out for 2 weeks. He was injured in that 3-0 loss against Leeds. He's gone. He's out of there. Kumas, 3 weeks. Also injured in that game. Lost their centre midfielder. And Croft, the guy who struggled, is out for a few days with a thigh strain. And he was actually injured in Ipswich's 1-0 defeat against Liverpool in the reserves. So after his performance, they bombed him straight into the reserves like a day later, probably on very low condition. Irons is going for Watson and Naismith. I don't know if he's trolling you there or not. Watson and Naismith. I like Watson, but what's Naismith been doing? Has he been doing okay? I've not been paying attention. He's not been doing bad, to be fair. Yeah, so Haridasson's ban, 1-match ban, starts on the 20th of February. So I think that's Sunderland. Yeah. So we will miss home to Sunderland, which is probably one of his best fixtures for the rest of the season. Home to Sunderland, home to Spurs is okay, but Spurs usually find a way to score. Man United, Middlesbrough, home to Middlesbrough, home to Newcastle. So home to Middlesbrough, home to Newcastle, and then this home game to Sunderland are probably the 3 best games they've got left of the season. He misses one of them. Peter Clark's 4 million for Everton. Tor's saying, yeah, got man of the match last game. You can never be sure that he'll definitely play because Weir's on 90. It would be my only thing I'd mention there. Perhaps I skipped over these too quickly. You can get pretty good in the game though, so yeah, I take Iron's point actually about the fullbacks. They could pick up the odd assists. You want to go for the ceiling players, I think, in free hits. So Stubbs is quite a safe pick. You know, he could maybe get some bonus in maybe one of the games, but if you want to go for those ceiling players, perhaps the fullbacks are better. Just on the odd occasion, they might get some attacking returns. Did we cover Fulham? We did cover Fulham, didn't we? And we did cover Ipswich. Andy's saying Peter Clark on free hit on your bench. Yeah, that's a good shout. No arguments there. Leeds. So McPhail was still 2 months. Bridges is 2 weeks. Ferdinand is a month. And Boya is about a week, 90%. So there's a chance he could feature here, I guess, but more likely he comes back for the League Cup semi against Liverpool. And then he's got all these games if anyone wants to take a punt on Bowyer as their third Leeds. In terms of condition, everyone looks pretty good. Radaby is actually 1 yellow away from a ban, so that would be a loss. They'd have to play Dewberry and Woodgate probably in that situation. Kemp saying that Woodgate at 4.5 is a bargain this week. Yeah, another good shout. 20 for jumping, should be winning the vast majority of his headers. I do like that. There's always that off chance they throw Dewberry in, but I don't think they've done that for a while now, so at 4.5 it seems worth it. Predicted Leeds mid. God, now you're asking. What did they play last week? They keep loving Maybury, don't they? I would have thought Bakker comes back in. Let me see. I'd say Kuehl on the left, I really hope, as I have him. I'd say Decor in centre midfield. I would say Bakker comes in maybe in centre midfield and possibly maybe plays right wing. And Keem who's back up front. That's what I would say would go on. There's obviously the off chance they could bring Batty in again in centre midfield. But generally they like to have one of the centre midfielders offensive. Leeds usually do that. They don't usually go for Batty and Decor. So yeah, I would expect either Bakker comes in, it'll be Decor here and Bakker here, maybe with an attacking arrow just here. And then the right wing could still be Maybury. But they've got 2 games, right? So it could change again. As Adam says, Singh is essential. Of course, Harpal Singh could just come in and centre midfield as well. He's played a lot of games, so you never know. Let's go to Leicester. Izzet still injured for 2 weeks. And everyone else looks pretty good. Impey's 85, but everyone else looks like they're over 90. Akinbai is still away on international duty. I think Leicester are they away to Arsenal or something? Oh, they're at home to Arsenal. So I don't think many people will be getting any of their players. So I'm just going to move on. If anyone wants to see anything desperately from Leicester, then put it in the chat. Dougal saying Bakker tends to start at the right mid. Away. Okay. Cool. So they could go back into core centre or maybe bring Singh into centre midfield then. Good shout. Liverpool. So Fowler's still 78% somehow. I swear he was low before and I don't think he played. So I think he's doing... Fowler's got really bad mental stats behind the game. Often just not bothered, you know, gets upset with teammates. He's got like low professionalism and stuff. So wouldn't surprise me if he's just not training. Equally though, he could have been thrown into a reserve game and I could be being very harsh. So we might see a wobbly from Fowler soon. Does happen quite a bit. Hancho, sorry guys, I know you banked your clean sheet and you'll take it and run, but he's out for a month. No, it was not a one-day injury, Scala. It's a whole month, mate. I own Hippier and I'm really annoyed about that because obviously it just weakens their defence in general. He's not been lucky with the injuries as Hancho. And the bans. He's missed a lot of football. It's kind of devastating. We knew it couldn't last for Liverpool, right? 10 days for Hegem as well. I'm just waiting for Hippier to go now. and then we'll be back in the situation where Liverpool suck again. But yeah, it's unlucky for owners. Reece has got a ban. Of course he has. Well done, Andy. Glad you got my back. He's got a 1-match ban starting on the 20th. Carries over to the League Cup. Pretty sure it does, so he'll miss Leeds. Someone's saying, does that mean Bishkan at centre back? Possibly. Could be. They could also stick Stephen Wright in. They've done that a few times this season. They've obviously still got Carragher. Liverpool have got a lot of options. Even Mr. Frodo Kipper, as James would say, can come in. So it's not one I would really like to predict. At a push, I'd say probably Carragher, but it could equally be right. Carragher, they don't seem to like to play at centre back very often. Straight out of work, James says, into the Mokoku news. No. Someone wants to look at Gerrard. Yeah, you can look at Gerrard. He's not a star player though for some reason. You would have usually is. They rotate a lot during the season though. Owen's come back and started getting his attributes up. That's why. Gerrard, here he is. Let's move on. Man United. Okay, Van Nistelrooy still 2 weeks away. So yeah, as I mentioned before, it could be back for this home game against Spurs, which looks pretty good on paper for him. But there's a chance he goes orange, and because it's Champions League, they play him here where he's going to run the gauntlet for injury. It could make or break in Van Nistelrooy's season these next few weeks, or this week I should say. David Beckham injured for 2 weeks. He's also got a ban that starts on the 16th. Barthez is still another week with his damaged foot. Veron is now suspended for 3 games. I think one will be served in the League Cup, maybe? Yeah, so away to Fulham, home to Spurs, and then away to Preston. So he should be back for home to Villa. So Scholes is good for at least 2 more league games, probably. Someone's saying Gary Neville. No, he's got no ban. Blanc is a yellow away from a ban himself. And Andy Cole is a few days with a groin strain, 90%. Solskjaer's 89, Irwin's 87. If you're a Sylvester owner, Irwin at 87, that's probably good news, right? Don't think there's anything else to note. Scala saying Lille is now fit. Yes, pointed that out last week. The Retribution might play because Lille was still fairly low on condition, but he's now at 100%. So maybe they swap back. Maybe Lille comes in. Right, Middlesbrough. Dean Gordon is still 2 weeks. Emerson Boyce is 84%. Everyone else seems to be above 90. Hamilton Ricard is 1 yellow away from getting banned. And Paul Ince is suspended for 1 match. So they played Windass and Somerville last game anyway. Maybe Ince was banned for this one as well. But looks like those two will probably play again then. Festa's still at 100%. Does anyone want to see anything? Southgate's fine, just rotation. think that's everything from Borough. We're doing okay on injuries, guys, aren't we? Newcastle. Oh, let's go back. Schwarzer's loan ending soon. Yeah, I don't think it was for long, actually. 9th of February, so he's actually coming back today. If I've read that right. So Schwarzer will be back. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it, if Schwarzer comes back and they reset and suddenly his rep's gone high enough that he replaces Crossley. I don't think that will happen, but it could happen. Oh, they rested Ince and now he's suspended. The suspension was... Oh, right, yeah. I say the AI doesn't take account into these things. So it was just a one-match ban. Ronnerid's saying. Right, Newcastle. Carl Court is 46% and a few days away after that. Horrific gash leg. It's nearly split his leg in two, bless him. But he's going to be back in a few days. He's got some pseudocreme. Chopra's a few days away. And Oloyu is 3 weeks. Solano is 100%. And where's Robert? Because these guys have been... He's not even lacking match practice. Just wants to be paid what he deserves. Where's Robert gone? Why am I being blind? There he is. 100% still. I would say almost close to totally nailed irons. I think he missed one this sim, which was a surprise. If I can remember that, I think he missed one game where he should have played. But generally, Robert will play nearly every game at left wing. He's one of those sort of 31 to 35 games a season players usually, unless he gets moody and wants to be sold or gets does a dab his ass essentially, which can happen occasionally. Chettle's still one game away, which is annoying because I think he would have been a pretty good pick for these two. Solano, yeah, so they played against Arsenal in their last game. This is what they played. But I would think Solano comes here, Robert comes here. Basidas and Dyer should probably play in the centre. That's their go-to midfield. I think Kadamatra usually plays up front. He doesn't usually play right wing. He can do, but I would suggest he'll probably play up front in place of Carl Court. I think Solano comes straight in. Fairly confident of that. No irons. I think they just sit in centre midfield, but I don't think it matters too much. I think Dyer and Basidas are just great centre midfielders. It's similar to the Veron thing, where their stats are so good that no matter who they come up against in centre midfield, they generally do well against them for average rating, and can still get attacking returns. I wouldn't worry about him playing centre. He's been very, very good on the right. You'll probably see a little bit of a dip in performance in Dyer, but not enough to note. I think he's still a good pick, both of them. Q Loire playing right wing. Southampton, we're going to massively gloss over this. Oakley's 87%. Taha's still away. BT, the only one probably of any interest apart from Svensson. It's been like this for a while, still now wants to stay at the club. And Svensson's 96%. Sunderland, Gray is still 2 months away. Dicchio is 10 days away. The lowest player they have is 94% after that. And Swartz is 2 matches away from returning. Issa's still away with South Africa. Sorensen is still annoying people. Just sell the guy or whatever. Hasn't seemed to affect them though, has it? Okay, I think that's it for Sunderland. Spurs. Poirier is still a few days away. The perma orange man. It's been for like nearly half a season now. Still playing. Rebrov is 10 days away, 31%. Doherty is 1 week. Richards is 2 weeks. So they'll get a big buff to their squad in the coming weeks, Spurs. Bodic is 3 months. No. And Pedrina's 2 weeks. Simon Davies is 89%. Yes, Scala. I think you're probably one of the few people that own him. But that is not ideal, is it? Considering the lack of other options, though. Still a fairly good chance he plays, isn't there? Johnson could come back in, obviously. What was the Monday night game? Blackburn Everton. My man. It's been mostly shocking, but it served me well today. Not today, this week. Kemp saying it'd be interesting if they played Poyer 90% orange or Davies 89 no orange. Only interesting to us losers, I would suggest. Sky Sports have had a shocker with that Monday night football pick. It's going to be game of the season, mate. What are you talking about? And the mighty West Ham are doing alright for injuries. Song's away on international duty. Repka is now back after his ban. That's probably the most important thing. Joe Cole, 1 yellow away. They are actually up against Southampton at home. Now, I haven't had a chance to do Sims this week because obviously the games were so late last night. This was so early this morning, so I don't have any odds for you, unfortunately. I'm not even sure I'm going to do them this week anyway. Keep it to myself, I think. We'll see. However, I have looked at West Ham at home to Southampton just because I was interested, and yeah, West Ham often go off in this game. I know it's only a single, but it's not much for prediction. Basically, everything I do is targeting Southampton these days, but I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham suddenly turn into Barcelona. So Irons, there you go. You might have something to cheer this week. Andy Gray and Richard Keys will smash it out of the park. Yeah, see, I'd always watch it when they were on. Yeah, obviously there's some issues with Andy Gray and Richard Keys since, but at the time, they were extremely fun to watch. Especially Andy Gray. Andy's saying this is going to be 1-1. Nah, it's going to be like 3-1 to West Ham. 2-1, 3-1. The wingers seem to do really well when I was looking. So he's 5 million, and he actually, if he plays, the double's 28, isn't it, with Arsenal? So I was kind of eyeing him up because I'm looking for a 5 million midfielder, and I was looking at Gaza, I was looking at this guy. Surprisingly. Obviously, well, because then they can sit on my bench afterwards, you see. I don't need to worry about them. African nations. No matches have been played. First game is today. Canute is a 1 week punt, like that. Irons, that's a very good point. That's, yeah, okay. Comparatively, West Ham turn into Barcelona for them, which essentially means they string 4 passes together, which is better than 0, right? You can't 1 week punt on any of these players. I would suggest in a single game, even though it is home to Southampton, when people have got doubles and triples. Just fits my strategy to have a 5 million. Buzzing for Algeria versus Ghana, says Andy. Scala says they did just beat Chelsea. Southampton should be easy. We'll see. We shall see. Right, let's have a quick look at the leagues. Giggs is now the 2nd highest rated player for the season. Yeah, James, Knute does have a double game week. He could be an alright punt, but it's more to do with the fact that they're home to Southampton, where they turn into Barcelona. Any games outside of that, I can't promise you anything. Especially against Arsenal. Yeah. Division 1, 2 and 3 tables, Andy's saying. Okay, we'll get to them. He has bonus nearly every time he plays irons. Top scorer in the first division is Lee Hughes on 18 with Dean Ashton and Giovanni Saves. Watford look like they might get promotion. So if we do carry on a 2nd season, could be picking the likes of Vega, Stephen Hughes. Where's oh, he's gone. Yeah. Richard Johnson and Pierre Issa have gone. Tommy Smith, let me tell you now, if he comes up, he's god tier in this game. Straight in. Heide Helgerson. Herman Hreiderson. Heide Helgerson. Double up. Valenza can be really good as well. Tommy Smith is like a cheat. "33-year-old Hinchcliffe, star player. 34 Maddox from Jamaica, star player. Steve Hartness. A. Lescott. Is that his brother? I doubt it, but let's see, what's his jumping? 14? No, it can't be. Second division, we've got Stoke riding high with Wigan. Dave's letting the side down. Shocking management. Lee McCulloch. Is this the guy who played for Rangers? No, I've got that wrong. Maybe he goes to Rangers often. This guy can be okay as well. Ben Foster. I don't know if that is the Ben Foster or not. He did go to Man United, didn't he? He is Jolien's older brother, that's what James is saying. Maybe. Okay, fair enough. Learn something new every day. Dodo. You're extinct, mate. Doing alright though. Alright, there we go, guys. I think that is it. Have you got any questions for me? Anything you want to see? Anything you want me to talk about? I think for me, I'm just going to mention what I'm going to be doing. I don't have any Newcastle players. I have 3 Charlton players, 3 Leeds players. That is it. I don't have any Derby either. I'm probably going to take a -4. I'm probably going to get Shearer and possibly Dyer in for a -4. So that'll give me 2 Newcastle. I'm still prioritising them over Derby. Might be a mistake, but still feel like they're better to have. And then it's just how many hits I want to take for Derby players after that, which I still haven't decided whether I do, as for the reasons I mentioned, that then I don't really want them afterwards. Yes, Andy. Hello, mate. Nice to see you. You want to see Valakari? Free hit, baby. Yeah. Those on a free hit are loving life. Van Nistelrooy versus Henry. I mean, people will go Henry because of the double, but over the course of 6 weeks, I'd still back Van Nistelrooy to outscore him, probably. Van Nistelrooy could score 2 or 3 at home to Spurs. Quite easily. Job security. Ooh. Tigana. Slightly insecure for Fulham. They might get rid of him. Tigana's a godly manager as well. In his background stats, it's got like 20 for everything. That would be interesting, right? We'd have Fulham have been fairly settled, but it depends which manager they get as to what they do. Change formation or something. Valakari versus Powell, Burley versus Powell. It's like I said at the very beginning, if you guys are watching, is I would go back and look at who played in the away games for Derby in which positions, and whoever it seems more likely to be playing in the advanced positions, I would go for that midfielder. I think it just, you want your player who's not playing centre back, because one of them ends up going to centre back. Obviously, it doesn't mean anything in terms of points. Anyone could score, but I think Burley's probably got the highest ceiling of all of them, just because he's got penalties. I also think he's the riskiest one because he gets subbed a little bit. His average rating's not great, and he I think Valakari is probably the safest pick overall, given this sim so far. I would certainly say Valakari is the safest pick. I like Burley for ceiling, and I think Powell is more of the peasant pick because he's also the cheapest. He's not done that well, but he can do okay. The thing with Powell though is he does play more positions than the other two. So if you're going on, where's Powell? Because he can play as a wing back as well. He plays AMC mid centre as well. He plays more positions than the others. So of the 3, I'd probably say he's probably got more chance of playing all 3. Although I don't necessarily see any reason why they all won't play 3, at least condition-wise. I think I mentioned it last time that when you look at Derby's fixtures, when it comes to like rotation and rep 12ing, as we call it, I can't see it at home to Leeds at all. I can't see it away because it never virtually happens away. If it was to happen, it would probably be home to Newcastle, which is probably their best game, annoyingly. But there's no way to know. Maybe the leak will help us on that. Andy, you know what to do. Yeah, even if I think Powell may be slightly more likely to play 3 games, I still don't really prefer him over Valakari. Your thoughts on Henry being rested in one of the doubles if it goes ahead? I think there's a pretty high chance. I still think people will cover it, because if he does play, he could go crazy. Obviously, the game could get cancelled, but home to Charlton, home to West Ham is up there for, I mean, it might be the best double on paper we've had all season. So let's say he does miss one, you're still going to get Henry at home to one of these really good teams, so he's still going to be a great pick just for 1 week. My only issue here is that I've already mentioned Van Nistelrooy also comes back in his home to Spurs, so you could just go Van Nistelrooy, hope that Henry misses one of these games, and then you've got Van Nistelrooy instead of Henry, which is probably a little bit better. CM Scout has already tweeted that the leak is terrible this game week. Oh dear. Would I sell Keller for Poom? I think if you haven't got Kylie, then you pretty much have to get Poom, I would think. I mean, that's probably what I would do. He just looks the most secure, and the save points is more than anything. I don't think they'll get that many clean sheets. Maybe one. But save points is going to be pretty big. The thing is, I've got Kylie. So he plays 2 anyway. So I just can't take a -4 to get a player who gets 1 extra game. I'm basically throwing away that extra game with a -4. We don't know the leak yet, Twiggy. Scout just tweeted that it's not very good, apparently. We don't know what it is. Yeah, I think we're done then, guys. If there's nothing else, I think we've been going, what's the time? 11:30. These guys want to get all the tweets out. They want to get you guys prepared with all the information, all the news. So I think we should end it there. It's been a pleasure. And I'm off to do some serious tinkering with my team. Remember, early deadline Saturday, 11 AM. So get these teams sorted. Thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you're tuning in retrospectively, I know people have got jobs. Should be playing CM obviously. Then thanks for watching it back. And I'll catch you on the next one. See you guys.